You paid $18 for that steak, maybe more. You brought it home, you heated up a pan, you dropped it in, and 4 minutes later, your smoke alarm was screaming, your stove was covered in grease, and the steak came out gray in the middle with a burnt stripe on one side. $18. And you stood there chewing it thinking, why doesn't this taste like the steakhouse? I'll tell you why. It's not the meat, it's not your pan. It's not some seasoning you forgot to buy. It's that you fried it. And frying a thick steak is the wrong way to cook it. It's always been the wrong way. Every steakhouse in the country knows it, and none of them are in a hurry to tell you. I learned the right way from the butcher who ran the meat counter in our town when I was first married. Old fellow, cut meat his whole life, and he watched people ruin good steaks for 40 years. He told me two things, and I have cooked my steaks his way ever since going on 30 years now. Every Friday night, this house has one. What comes off my stove beats any steakhouse steak I've ever paid for, and I've paid for a few just to check. Here's the whole trick, right up front, because I'm not going to make you wait for it. Salt the steak the day before. Cook it backwards oven first, low and slow, then a screaming hot sear at the very end, not the beginning. That's it. That's the trick. Salt early, sear last. Now let me walk you through why it works and exactly how I do it, because the details matter and the details are where everybody goes wrong. Start with the salt, because this part happens tonight if you're eating steak tomorrow. Take your steak out of the package, pat it dry with a paper towel. Now salt it more than feels polite. Plain salt, the coarse kind if you have it, both sides. Then set it on a little rack over a plate, nothing covering it, and put it in the refrigerator overnight. Bare, uncovered. I know that feels wrong. Do it anyway. Here's what's happening in there, in plain words. First, the salt pulls water out of the meat. You'll see it, the surface gets wet within the hour. If you cooked it right then, you'd be steaming it in its own juice, and steamed meat never browns. But you're not cooking it right then. You're waiting. And overnight, that salty water soaks back down into the steak deep, carrying the seasoning with it. So instead of a steak that's salty on the outside and bland in the middle, which is every steak you've ever made, you get one that's seasoned all the way through. And while that's happening, the cold air in your refrigerator is drying out the surface. That dry surface is the whole ballgame. That deep brown crust you get at a good steakhouse, the crust is where all the flavor lives, and it only forms on a dry surface. Water has to go before browning can start. A steak straight out of the plastic package is soaking wet. That's why yours goes gray instead of brown. It's not your pan, it's the water. One night in the fridge, uncovered, salted. Costs you nothing. Changes everything. If you truly can't wait overnight, salt it at least an hour ahead. But overnight is better. And it's not close. Now they'll sell you a bottle of steak seasoning for $6 to fix a bland steak. 14 ingredients on the label, and the first one is salt. Salt and thyme is what you needed. You already own both. By the way, tricks like this, where the fix costs nothing and the timing is everything, I've got a whole book of them. Every method I use to run this house for less, written down in one place. It's on my website, links right below the video. Go get it. I won't bring it up again. All right, day 2. The steak's been salting overnight, the surface is dry and a little tacky to the touch, darker looking. That's exactly right. Now we cook it, and we cook it backwards. Everything you've ever been told says sear first, hard and fast, then finish it off. That's backwards, and here's why. When you throw a cold steak into a raging hot pan, the outside cooks in seconds and the inside is still nearly raw. So you keep it in the pan, waiting on the middle, while the outer half of the steak overcooks into that thick gray band. By the time the center is pink, you've got maybe an inch of steak you actually wanted and a lot of gray, dry meat wrapped around it. Plus a kitchen full of smoke and a stove you'll be scrubbing till bedtime. The butcher's way flips it. Gentle heat first, so the whole steak comes up to temperature slow and even, edge to edge. Then the sear at the end, one fast, violent minute per side just to build the crust. The inside's already done, so the sear doesn't have to do anything but brown. Here's exactly how. Set your oven low around 250 degrees. Put the steak on a rack over a baking sheet, so the air gets underneath, and slide it in. Now walk away. Depending on how thick your steak is, this takes somewhere between 20 and 45 minutes, and I'm going to tell you right now, do not guess. This is where you spend the only money in this whole method. A meat thermometer. The plain kind with a probe, $10 or $12 at any hardware store or grocery store, and it will last you years. It is the single best cooking tool in my kitchen, and it costs less than one restaurant steak. You're pulling that steak out of the oven when the center reads about 115 degrees if you like it. Pink in the middle, which is medium rare, and yes, that's how it should be, but I won't fight you about it. Like it a little more done, pull at 125. The sear is going to add a few degrees more, so you pull early. The thermometer takes all the guessing out. No poking it with your finger, no cutting into it to peek and letting all the juice run out. $10 to never ruin a steak again. Cheapest insurance there is. While the steak's in the oven, get your heaviest pan out. Cast iron if you've got one, and most of you have your grandmother's sitting in a cupboard somewhere, go find it, but any heavy pan will do. They'll sell you a special $200 searing pan. Don't bother. Heavy and hot is all that matters. Steak comes out of the oven at temperature. Now, crank that pan on high heat and let it get properly hot. I mean hot enough that a drop of water skips across it and vanishes. Add just a little oil, plain cooking oil with a splash of it. Not butter yet. Butter burns at this heat. Lay the steak in. 60 to 90 seconds. That's all. Don't move it. Don't fiddle with it. Let it sit and brown. Flip it. 60 to 90 seconds on the other side. If it's a thick steak, hold it up on its fat edge with your tongs for 30 seconds and render that fat golden too. That edge fat, crisped up, might be the best bite on the plate, and most people leave it flabby and cut it off. Now, if you want, drop in a pat of butter for the last 30 seconds and spoon it over the top. That part's optional. It's also worth doing. And here's a bonus nobody tells you. Because the steak came up to temperature slow and gentle, you barely have to rest it. All that business about letting a steak sit for 10 minutes while it goes cold on the counter, that's fixing a problem the frying method created. Cook it this way and the juices stay put. A couple minutes while you get the plates down, and you're eating. Total smoke in your kitchen, about 2 minutes worth instead of 10. Total splatter, a fraction. And the steak brown, crackling crust on the outside, and then pink from edge to edge inside. Not a stripe of pink in the middle of a gray sandwich. Pink the whole way through, seasoned the whole way through, every single bite, the good bite. The first time you cut into one, you'll see it immediately. It looks like the picture on the Steakhouse menu, because it's the same method. That's not an accident. Now let me tell you plainly what this trick won't do, because I'm not going to oversell it to you. It won't fix a thin steak. If your steak is under an inch thick, this whole method is wasted on it. There's no inside to protect. Thin steaks you fry fast and hot and you're done. That's the right tool for that job. This method wants a thick steak, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, thicker even. When you're at the meat counter, buy one thick steak instead of 2 thin ones. Same money, better steak, and you can share it. It also won't turn a tough, sinewy cut into butter. Salt and slow heat help. They help a lot. But a cut full of gristle is a cut full of gristle. Those cuts want a pot and an afternoon, and that's a different video. But here's what it will do, and this is the part that saves you real money, so listen close. This method makes cheap steaks taste expensive. That ribeye at the case, the pretty one $16, $18 a pound these days, right next to it, usually on the bottom shelf, is a cut called the chuck eye. Butchers used to keep those for themselves. My butcher called it the poor man's ribeye because it's cut from right next door to the ribeye on the animal. Almost the same meat, half the price, sometimes less. The reason nobody buys it is that it's a little less forgiving. Fry it carelessly and it comes out chewy, so people tried it once and went back to paying double. But cooked this way, salted overnight, brought up slow, seared hard at the end, a chuck eye comes out so close to a ribeye that I have served it to company and nobody blinked. Same goes for a thick-cut sirloin. The gentle method is exactly what the cheaper cuts need. So the trick doesn't just beat the steakhouse on taste, it beats them on price by a mile. A steakhouse dinner for 2 runs you $100 now, easy, once they've added the sides and the tip. I can put 2 thick steaks on my own table, better than theirs, for under $20. Do that twice a month instead of going out, and you've kept most of $2,000 a year in your own pocket. That's not a gimmick number. Sit down and figure it for your own house, and skip the marinades while you're at it. For a good thick steak, A marinade mostly just sits on the surface. Making it wet and wet, we've established, is the enemy of the crust. Salt, thyme, pepper right before the sear. Pepper goes on late because it burns in a screaming pan and turns bitter. That's the whole seasoning list. Everything else in that marinade aisle is there to sell, not to season. Now, think for a minute about why you never knew this. Because none of it is secret. Every steakhouse cook in America salts ahead and sears last, one way or another. It's been the trade's way of doing it forever. The steakhouse isn't going to teach you. Obviously, their whole business is you believing there's magic in their kitchen. There's no magic. There's salt, a thermometer, and a hot surface. You're paying $60 a plate for patience. And the grocery aisle isn't going to teach you either, because there's a whole shelf of products that only sell if you keep cooking steak wrong. The marinades, the tenderizing powders, the 14-ingredient seasoning shakers, the sauces to pour over a steak that came out dry, every one of those exists to patch a mistake that costs nothing to just not make. Nobody profits off you salting a steak the night before. There's no bottle for that, so nobody put it in front of you. That's not a conspiracy. It's just how the money runs. The cheap answer has no advertising budget, and the dear answer has a whole aisle. So here's what I want you to do. This week, buy one thick steak and be brave. Try the chuck eye. Ask the fellow at the counter if you don't see it, they can cut you one. The night before you want it, pat it dry, salt it good, set it uncovered in the fridge on a rack. Next day, oven at 250 on a rack. Pull it at 115 in the center. Sear it hard for a minute aside in your hottest pan. Pepper it, eat it. And if you don't own a thermometer yet, that's your $10 this week. Best 10 you'll spend all year. Then come back here and tell me in the comments how it turned out, and tell me what your steak habits are now. Are you a salt right before person? A marinade person? Did your mother fry them hard in a cast iron pan like mine did? Bless her, she did everything else right. I read the comments, all of them, and half of what I know I've picked up from people like you telling me how their family did a thing. Next time, I'm going to show you what I do with the cuts, even cheaper than chuck eye, the ones under $4 a pound that everybody walks right past, and how a pot and a slow afternoon turns them into the best meal of the week. That one'll save you more than this one did. Until then, salt it tonight, cook it tomorrow, and quit paying strangers to be patient for you.